Okay, here we go.
That's all good. They don't keep coming, it's hot.
That was a big old bird.
Hi everyone, it's your girl Dynasty.
And I'm Charles, and welcome to Mental Health in the Hood.
And this is a mental health show.
Good job.
All right. Okay, so welcome to Mental Health in the Hood. This is season 2. Psychological and emotional trauma is what this season is going to be about. We are having episode 1, which is struggles of having a mental illness and being high functioning. So we have a special guest here with us today. We have Meika. She is here, and we are so proud of her. Took her a long time to come on the show, but she's here.
Oh, okay.
So Meika is my colleague and my friend. She's a very dear friend to me. She graduated from USC with a Master's of Arts in Teaching, and she's currently a high school teacher who teaches in biology, chemistry, and physics. Did I say it right?
Wow.
Yep.
Yes, so wow. Okay.
Wow.
She is amazing, right? So she's here to share her story and struggles with mental health.
Okay, but don't forget about the shout outs now.
Shout outs and celebrations. Okay, we can't forget about that. So we want to shout out Anthony.
Yeah.
He came on the show in season 1. He was one of our final episodes. He talked about his struggles with PTSD and growing up in his childhood and how it affected him and shaped him. So we want to shout out Anthony for coming through.
Thank you, bro. We appreciate that, man. You're doing good.
Yes, we do. And we also want to shout out everyone who came to our recap and feedback Zoom meetup that happened on July 8th. Meika was there as well.
Right.
It was a beautiful thing to hear the feedback of how people felt about the Zoom meetups and how people felt about the mental health show. And I noticed that we had a different audience. It was some people who were watching the mental health show that never really came to the Zoom meetings, and then some people who came to the Zoom that never watched the show. So knowing that we have an audience that comes from social media and different type of platforms, from YouTube, Twitter, Zoom meetups, Instagram, that shows that we're like slowly reaching the people. So. And
you see how the conversations always get so deep.
Yeah.
You know, how people just put their hearts out there, man.
Yes.
It's amazing, people. I'm telling you, it's amazing.
Yes, yes.
You gotta join. You gotta join.
Yes, please tap in, and thank you everyone for attending. And supporting and following our movement, subscribing, sharing our posts. We highly appreciate it. We cannot do this work without you guys. This show is for the everyday people, and we're thankful that you guys have joined this journey with us. So we're going to go over a little bit of education to make sure that we're all on the same path about what this episode is truly about. This season is going to be a lot about psychological and emotional trauma. So I'm going to read a definition to you guys, and most of the definitions that I read are very generic. It's more of a brief understanding of what this term means. So psychological and emotional trauma is damage or injury to the psyche after living through an extremely frightening or distressing event, and may result in challenges in functioning or coping normally after the event. While each person who experiences a traumatic event will react differently, many do recover well with the proper support system and do not experience long-term problems. But I do want people to understand that emotional and psychological trauma looks different from everybody. Some people cope within 2 weeks. Some people take a little bit longer. There is no time limit on your emotional and psychological trauma that you experience. And through that, through the things that you experience, the life-threatening events can look different for someone else. Somebody might think that a life-threatening event was a car accident. Someone might think of it as a mental illness. Some might think of it as a long-term abuse. Everybody's experience with trauma and how it affects them emotionally, psychologically looks different. So today we're going to talk about how Meika has experienced that and what that looks like in her life. So thank you, Meika, for being brave and being able to tell your story, because I think a lot of people are going to be empowered by it. You know, we worked together alongside each other for 3 years, and I'm really empowered by the work that you're doing, what you stand for, and just all the good things. I can take a list and keep going and be like,
shout out.
But we're not going to do that. But I'm happy that you're here, and you're our first episode of season 2. So we're going to start it off, and my dad has the first question.
Oh, it's season 2 already, huh?
Yes.
Y'all got how many subscribers?
55.
Like
55.
About to get to 100.
And we're trying to get to 100, but we can't do that without y'all, so tap in.
Hey, Meika, how you doing today?
I'm good.
Okay, you're smiling. That's good. Everybody's smiling.
Yes.
I have a question for you. I just want you to relax, you know, think before you talk, and just give us you. All right, my first question is, what is your current mental illness? And how does it impact your emotional trauma?
So I was diagnosed with bipolar depression in 2017. That was a huge shocker to me. It did come at a point in my life where I had a very stressful experience, and I had to basically kind of seek out the help that I haven't been open to seeking. And so I was in some intensive care spaces, and it was really difficult being in those spaces because I didn't know that something was wrong with me, to the point that I was going to get diagnosed. And I was in group sessions with people who were also struggling with their own diagnosis, and hearing whether it's depression or do I have bipolar? Am I not even, like, learning about people getting other serious ones like schizophrenia.
Right.
I just was feeling like, how could I have grown up so much and not known that I was bipolar, or knowing that there's a difference between bipolar and bipolar depression. And so that first word, just hearing bipolar, shook me, and I was like,
Okay, yeah.
am I crazy?
No.
And then I learned about bipolar depression, and I was like, okay, this is a little, not necessarily a little bit different, but it was very reassuring to learn about more about the diagnosis.
Okay, that's real nice. And I kind of overheard you say, like, you were in group sessions with other people, hearing other stories and things like that.
Yep.
How did that make you feel when you heard other people's stories?
You know, it really made me understand that mental health takes its own shape in very different people.
Yes.
And at the same time, you see people who have like a strong background, or they obviously were like being okay in their environments, and then something switched. And so it really opened my eyes to understand that everybody could be going through something, and you never know. And so seeing those people in that room with me, it allowed me to, again, like, get a little bit more comfortable in the fact that I was finally asking for help. And other people also struggled, because there were younger people that were in there struggling, there were older people that were in there struggling, but we all, in that sense, were getting the help that we needed, and we're encouraging each other.
There you go. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
All right.
Yeah, I really do. Great.
I like how
answer.
she really elaborated on how it shapes people and how it moves
Right.
through people differently. So that was good. The next question that I have is, what are some of the cultural stigmas associated with being a Nigerian professional woman battling with a mental illness?
Yeah, so shout outs to all the Nigerians out there. You know, I'm Nigerian American. My parents were born in Nigeria and came here. One thing that everybody knows about Nigerians is that you normally are either a lawyer, a doctor, an engineer. That's what
Lawyer, doctor, engineer, period.
Right.
I'm
That's
learning
the
something
norm.
today. I'm learning something today. Okay.
That's the norm. And so,
Okay.
not saying that that's not, you know, something that I value, but I also knew myself, and I knew what I wanted to be, and I knew I didn't want to be a doctor, but I had a passion for biology or science, and then I also have a passion for music. And so having to kind of always prove that that's okay, and that I was okay being a different Nigerian, and going up against the odds, it also had a lot of stress, because again, even though I wasn't going into, you know, law or medicine, I still felt like I had to be at the top. I still felt like, just knowing my family, knowing my the circle that I was around, I had peers who were still in medical school or pursuing that as Nigerians as well, and I saw this pressure that they put on themselves. But it was almost, I love our parents, but sometimes they could put us up against each other. And so it's always this idea of like, who's doing better, who's functioning the most, and who's like achieving their goals, and, you know, has the accomplishments that we can share about. And so with mental health, that means that part gets disturbed.
Okay.
And when you aren't performing at your highest level, or something switches and you're not, you know, getting the grades that you're supposed to get, you're not going to all the events that you're supposed to get, things like that can really, you know, stem from people misunderstanding what's going on with you.
Right.
And so a lot of people will keep that to themselves. I've seen people get really quiet, take their failures and not share it out, and they take it and they keep it to themselves, and again, that's damaging.
Right.
And so that's the stigma of, like, you know, a lot of Nigerians and successful professional black women and black men want to hit the bar so high that if they don't hit it, or if something messes up in their day-to-day life that is going to affect their ability to hit a goal, you know, they're not performing at the level they're supposed to, and they're less than, they're unworthy, and that leads to a lot of shame, depression, and just, you know, feeling like you aren't going to make it, unsuccessful.
Right.
Wow.
Right. Yeah, I noticed that too, and I see that in a lot of different cultures. Because I think with African Americans, it's like when you turn 18, you're not just gonna lay around here. You're gonna go to work, you're gonna go to school, you're gonna do something. But there's not a certain type of degree you have to have, or a certain type of field. So when I heard Meika and a few of my Asian friends talk about the things that come along with that pressure from their family and those expectations, and when those things don't happen and how it affects them mentally, I was like, wow, that's a whole different experience. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, that's beautiful. A science teacher.
Science teacher.
Yeah, okay.
Black
Yeah.
science teacher,
Science,
okay?
I
Black
know that.
woman science teacher.
Okay,
Hashtag.
I have another question for you. You're doing so great on these questions, Meika. So my next question is, in your work as a science teacher, when COVID happened and the school closed down, how did it affect your mental health?
So, one, I think for everybody, it shook them. It shook their routines. It shook their separation of work and life and home life. And for me, it was also coping, not only with, okay, how am I going to continue to do my job and be there for my students, but how am I going to basically engage, because I feed off of people. I feed off of being in having that connection. So now it's like I can't have that connection because we're not safe. It's not safe to be around people, and you want to take that ownership and be like, okay, I will do my part and not be around people. But when you're someone who feels like you need that, or being by yourself, because I don't have a roommate, but being by yourself can feel isolating. And that takes me back to, you know, some of my emotional trauma of when I had those bad episodes. Like, I isolate myself, and so I'm putting myself, it almost feels like you put yourself in a more dangerous environment that's not going to be great for me and my mental health. So then I'm not being great for my students, or I can't take on the trauma and the stress that they're also feeling, because that's, you know, as a job of a teacher, but also in the field and the students that we work with, it's almost like I have to be on. I'm used to being on, or being like what they need in the moment, and not having the opportunity to take off days, or saying I'm not available, or let me tap out when I know I'm not up to par, because now I have to be on because they need somebody. They need this structure and stability. So it was really hard for me to be like, let me give them that, but I know I ain't got it.
Right.
Who got me?
So how you gonna pour from an empty cup, and then still be able to wake up as a teacher, do this virtual learning, which is not new to your profession, but doing virtual learning out the blue, the school curriculum being set up around that, because you do write your own curriculum, and then having to support yourself every day to even get on camera to support them, and then the kids coming in with their consistent questions. Meika, what's happening? Do I need to go get tested for COVID? And it's like now that conversation has shifted from academics to actually focusing on mental health for herself, and also for her students. And I know that can be a lot, you know.
And being that that you've been doing this for 3 years now, and then also struggling with your mental health in your personal life, do you feel like the kids help you stay balanced to a certain extent?
You know, I think I really have grown too in my knowledge. Like, again, 2017 was not too long ago, so I don't want to say I came up out of, you know, my sessions truly understanding bipolar depression, and I had to be comfortable with sharing. With my students, I could be real and say I'm having a bad day, and some of them understand that, or the vibe in the classroom changes. They're like, okay, Meika's like, she's getting to business today. It ain't no jokey, ain't no kikis. And so for some students, and I won't say the ones, you know, who have the capacity to care or anything like that, but I think some all of my students have that ability to being like, but are you good? Because I'm
Yeah.
always asking them, like, how's your day? Are you okay? Do you want to eat? What color are you? And they like, what color are you? And I'll be like, I'm red. Real talk. Real talk.
My color is red. The zone is red.
Do
you work?
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool.
Or I'm like, I'm yellow, and they be like,
Yeah.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Can we help you get out of that? I'm like, I don't know if you can, but yeah, that's
Well,
what's up. You can by doing your work.
And the kids understand it too.
They do, and I think they
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Yeah,
So I
that's
hope
good.
they appreciate it.
They do. All right. Thank you. Appreciate
Okay,
that.
so thank you for sharing all of the challenges that come along with, you know, teaching online and dealing with COVID and your own mental health. What coping strategies did you use, and how did it help you?
So I had to really focus on what do I do as one, a teacher, but as a person. What are my joys in life that are going to bring me out of, one, my episodes, but also just bring me out of feeling hopeless and feeling like I'm alone. So I love music, and I also found out that I love commuting. So what I used to do is just make a attempt to wake up just like I would if I was going to a building, and I woke up early, got dressed, and I would get in the car so that I can listen to my favorite music, and I would drive to a park, so I had that commuting feel, and I would walk, so I would exercise. And so I felt like on those walks I either was singing, or sometimes I was on the phone chopping it up with family members that are 2 hours ahead in Kansas City, Missouri. And just having that time to say, like, I took care of myself. I'm getting my mindset right. Sometimes I would even go back to my car and like start to work in my car before going back to my house and doing that work. So it felt like I was separating myself from the confinement and trying to regain my sense of freedom, my sense of control. So that was the exciting part for me. It's like I had to create my own routine, and then after work I had a workout group that was very consistent, and we'd be like, okay, 4 o'clock I'm about to work out, and that was consistent. So that consistency and being very intentional about my engagement with people got me through.
Yeah, I would say I like the fact of what you were sharing about the routine, because I feel like a lot of people have to change up their routine and being able to separate home from work. Because when you wake up, you used to spend at least an hour to get ready and then spending an hour in traffic. And then now, what do you do with those 2 hours? Because now your office is in your living room. You know, so you go from your bed to your living room and you looking for that inspiration, even if it's through nature, just driving to work and you knowing you're going somewhere. And then now it's like you don't have that separation between work and business, and work and home, because your home became your place of work. And so trying to create a schedule of breaks around working out, drinking water, eating healthy, doing all those things, it was a mind shift for all of us.
I noticed that since COVID-19 hit, that you have a lot more people who's working out. I can look out the windows and I see people walking, running, holding hands, whole families together, doing something. So I think really, you know, the work, when we was going to work every day and we didn't have the time to do a whole lot of stuff, I feel like this time that people can really focus on themselves and build themselves, so by the time when work do hit again, you can become a whole different person. Your approach can be different. And I realized that you have to be different when you're trying to build. It's like if you don't like how something is, you got to switch it up. And when COVID hit, we all had to switch it up. And to be honest with you, I'm not going to say I love it, but I have embraced it to the fullest, because with it, it had allowed me for us to do this more, and just for me to focus on my life through the struggles and things like that. So I just say I appreciate COVID, but I do want to get back to work, let the world open up a little bit more. But I just say, people, take this time and focus on your lives, your kids, things like that.
And I think that's important, what you said. People are outside of their house. Like, this stuff is free. And I think as a science teacher, I just want to put it out there. Even I learned, like, seeing the sun, feeling the sun on your skin, that also helps with your mental health. It's also a coping mechanism. So,
and it's vitamin D.
And you need it. Like,
and a lot of African Americans have low vitamin D because we're not always in the sun, always outside.
Okay, well, let me move move on. We can go on and on. About
Yeah, you
that.
know,
We're
dealing with some educated women.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Master's degree in social work, master's degree in teaching. Period. To get it
Okay.
together.
We're gonna move on. I have
Shout out to celebration.
I have
USC, Trojan.
Another question for you.
Keep going, STEM. Oh, sorry, Dad.
It's okay. They're getting a little caught up in there, but don't worry about it. We'll get them back together. All right. From the companies or institutions you have worked in, do you think that the work environment support or cater to the mental illness of professionals?
You know, it's a buzzword now, which is self-care. I want to shout out my friend who was like, they don't teach y'all self-care in your master's programs for your teaching. They don't teach that in schools, period. And so when we think about institutions, I really think that it's important for teachers to understand, or the schools to just make sure that they have a mental health staff that can bring those tools in for the teachers, can help assess and evaluate what's going on with certain students when their behaviors switch or change up. I think about colleges and just going back to the idea of Nigerians, of how many Nigerians that I know, if they're not successful, there's been a lot of suicidal rates in our community, and a lot of that is because you're so focused on getting and achieving in college and doing what you need to do to get this degree, that nobody's checking for you in your emotional state, or no one's making sure that you are taking care of yourself. Even though just like the workplace and just like the schools, they do have those services. And so there are like companies, you want to say corporate America, higher you get in like some of the education fields and social work, they'll have services a part of your health plans, and so they're like, oh, please utilize this, but I don't think it is suggested. You get that information when you first sign your papers, but you don't hear them bring it back up, or you don't have people looking out for you and saying like, have you tried this? Can you make sure you're taking care of yourself, and suggesting that you take off. When I think about when I was working my 3 jobs when I was in college, I was a server, I was working in clothing stores, and so you think about those people and their jobs, and they don't have the ability to take off, because they're losing money. They don't have the ability to say, I have a mental health day, as I would as a teacher. And so you have to think about, what is the everyday job or institutions, what are they doing to make sure that people don't work themselves out to death, because that's what it is, especially for our Black and brown communities. Like, look at it right now, essential workers, we have them going out and making sure that we can go to the grocery stores and all this stuff, but like, what are they dealing with? It's COVID happened to the regular person who has to now work from home, but then that also stress is coming from them, and they don't take mental health days, they don't know anything about that. So I think really being able to either have it embedded in your own community, company, where you're doing check-ins with your coworkers, and seeing like, or being aware if they don't perform, not making that be like, oh, you're about to lose your job because you aren't doing what I hired you to do.
Right. Because the works, all spaces, like the school we work at, we are blessed and fortunate to have a place where every morning they check in with us, that we're able to be honest about how we feeling today, when we're able to advocate for our needs and what type of support that we need from admin, or that we need from our team, and that we need from each other. And also we have the type of supportive staff that we can say, hey, today is not a good day for me. What can I do, or how can I, take some time off? And we have supportive staff who have our back. Everybody doesn't have that environment.
No, they don't.
People don't have mental health days. You get a benefit package, but it don't say mental health. You get sick, vacation, and you get
pay time?
no, when people pass away. Bereavement.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the only thing that you get. You don't have mental health days. So with that being said, just adding to what Meika is saying, I think a lot of institutions have to understand that sometimes people's high functioning, and if they do make a mistake, and say if that day they're a little bit off, some people's performance and their jobs is underway. It's like, well, this person's doing something different, and now you having a meeting, and say for instance, like when you get hired at a job, you don't have to tell somebody that you have a mental illness. So when they see these things happen in that work, they don't even know what that is. They just think that you're being disobedient, or you're just bringing out, you don't know how to separate personal professional. But when you have a meeting with them, you don't have to disclose that you have a mental disability, because then you don't want to be judged, and you just wanted that information is safe. So
with Dynasty saying that, it made me think, do you think that people be scared to speak out, feel like their job would be in jeopardy?
I definitely think so. I think that
that's a good question.
Even when I went through the process, you know, you go to these hospitals and you do the assessments, and you're struggling. You're like, I took off to do this, and in in that moment, you don't know if they're gonna be like, oh, you okay? Go ahead and go to. No, but going back to that, I think people are afraid to, one, ask for the time off, or even take that.
Right.
So, but if you do, what are you gonna tell your your job? You feel like you don't know what the protocols are. Do I go and tell them, yeah, I took off to go get diagnosed or go get assessed, and here they are telling me I have something and I need time to cope with that? Because what do you expect me to do with just processing that I have this? And I don't know if I should tell people. I don't know if I have a safe space to tell it to my supervisor.
Right.
Some people make the choice just to not work, just to go ahead and go on disability, go ahead and fire themselves almost, because they are scared of whatever may come, and they again just feel like they're not in a safe space at that job to share, and that people will be understanding, so they make the choice themselves to just be like, I'm gonna be unemployed because no one understands.
I can see people doing that. That's a tough space to be in. It really is. Thank you for that. I know the world appreciates your answers.
Okay,
Miss Dynasty,
last and final question. I know, it seemed like we just got started, huh? All right, what are some ways that mental health agencies can improve services for individuals suffering from depression?
So I know we all talk about making sure, having more of a representation of who you're serving in those fields. And I think that's going to be something that comes with time, just like it is getting a science teacher or Black people into STEM programs. I also think, though, being a person who went through like the assessments and going to these sessions and trying to get the help when I had bad days or times in the year that I was like, the medication's not working, I need to go, I need something. A lot of the times those sessions were either only available at far institutions or mental health centers, and so really thinking about how close are the services to the people who truly need it, and then what are the hours of these sessions that you have, whether it's how early in the morning can you do a session if you got people who have either night shifts or they're high functioning,
who have children work,
and making sure that they have early times or if they have late evening times, and also thinking about the group sessions. How are you going to do that and allow working class people to also mix in with a professional like myself? Because like we shared in the beginning, like I felt like I needed to be around all type of people to understand my struggles and to like really cope and really understand that take away the stigma to mental health. And so people have to the mental health services, they have to realize that, are they making their services available to the everyday person, or is it just for the professional person who can take off and has mental health days or sick days and paid leave time? Because at the end of the day, we are jeopardizing. How am I going to jeopardize my health and not take care of the money and take care of my people, my kids, but I'm going to go to work with the same issue, not getting any help? I'm still jeopardizing that money. I'm still jeopardizing my family and being able to take care of my kids or my situation, because it's not healthy.
Wow. Yeah, man, that's tough right there.
That's tough, and I think those hours of operation is everything, because if you only have a certain amount of time, and then like Meika said, when you do find a location that does fit your hours, you got to drive 45 minutes out.
Yep.
Right.
And then you got waiting time, then time driving back. So by the time you finish, you're not returning to work for the rest of the day. And then sometimes they ask you for a follow-up or a check-in appointment, so then you have to go back. You know, so you just never really know how that can be. So thank you, Meika.
Yeah, that's good.
So I just want to share that while traumatic experiences frequently involve life-threatening events, any situation that leaves one feeling alone and completely overwhelmed can be traumatic, even without physical harm. It's important to remember that it's not the objective facts of the event alone that determine how traumatic an event is. It's also the subjective emotional experience of the event. Often the more terror and helplessness one feels, the more likely it is that that individual will be traumatized. So objective means a general perspective, and subjective means that person's feelings and how they perceive things. So just like I said before, everybody's trauma and emotional and psychological trauma looks different. So we want to thank Meika for taking her time out today to meet with us.
Yes, we appreciate it.
You show brave, courage, all of those things,
Y'all
right?
questions was like, Lord.
No, but you did a great job at answering them, though. So that's good.
Yeah.
You know,
Appreciate you.
And you representing people.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing, is that not only are you coming for yourself, you're representing people and putting a voice out for everyday people.
Exactly.
Not people who may have bipolar depression, but people who are struggling, period. People try to make it seem like you have to be diagnosed to have a mental health situation or a crisis, and that's not true.
No, it's not true.
Everybody goes through something, okay?
Everybody can use some help.
Yes.
Right. So we have our final announcements. So we have our next Zoom meetup that is going to be happening Wednesday, August 5th. The topic is going to be neighborhood characteristics and depression. It's going to be held at 7 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. It will be part of our season 2. So just keeping you guys alarmed and keeping you guys aware. So put that on your calendar. We need you there.
Yes, we do.
And then season 2, episode 2 will be posted Sunday, August 16th at 9:00 a.m. And then we have our new edition. So just to let you guys know, a lot of people like the workouts that my dad does. He inspired a lot of people.
Yes.
He even helped to create this image here.
Ooh,
Okay,
snap.
so I've been working out. I was a couple of pounds more heavier, you know, a couple of months ago, and I feel like now I'm getting closer to my dream size, which is the size that I think fits for me, not for what society perceives it to be.
Come on now.
So we are going to do a workout called Call to Action
Yes.
on Sunday, August 23rd at 9:00 a.m. It's a big surprise. We basically want to make sure we bring everybody together for a good cause, and that when we're working out, we're also working out and raising awareness about mental health as we're doing that.
Exactly.
So I want you guys to tap in, subscribe to our YouTube channel, please. We're trying to reach 100 subscribers, even more than that, but that's just the first goal.
Okay.
Like I said, we are currently in season 2, psychological and emotional trauma. Thank you guys for tapping in, and we will talk to you guys soon.
Appreciate y'all out there, everyday people.
All right.
Every day.